Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Inspirista, Mindset Mojo mentor, and best-selling publisher Linda Joy. And I am so excited about today's show because learning to own and tap into and honor my own intuition completely changed my life. And you know, throughout the ages, the most extraordinary human beings, from Einstein, DaVinci, and Joan of Arc to Steve Jobs, Oprah, and Stephen Hawking, have attested to one common factor as the secret to their life success. That's right, my friends, intuition. In this inspiring conversation, author Kim Chestney will help us redefine intuition for the modern age and empower us all to know and trust our intuition so that we can experience the extraordinary life we are born to live. Kim is the author of Radical Intuition, a globally recognized innovation leader and the founder of Intuition Lab. Her work has been featured and supported by leading-edge organizations, including Carnegie Mellon University, Comcast, Hewlett-Packard, and many others. I was thrilled to highlight her book in Aspire magazine and share her wisdom here on the show. Welcome, Kim.
Thanks for having me, Linda. I'm excited to talk with you today.
I am too. It's such an important topic. And I'll just share a little bit about my story. But for many years, I didn't know how to hear. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to connect. I was disconnected with what I call my truth. Mm-hmm. So that's why I am so excited to have this conversation today, because I remember what it felt like to feel that disconnect. Yes. And I realize now we all have the ability to connect. We just need someone like you to give us the missing pieces.
Yeah. And I love that, that starting off this way, because I think that disconnection is really a common factor with so many people. And part of the problem with our intuition and sort of, the way it's atrophied or we've forgotten how to use it is it creates a kind of disconnection in our life. And that really leads to a lot of our issues that we're having and that sort of existential angst that exists behind life and so much that we're doing right now at this time. So it's really wonderful to have people like you supporting this sort of redirection back to realigning our intuition and rebalancing our intuition with our mind and our intellect.
It's so true. I can only speak for my own journey. It was like I always needed validation from outside of myself. Mm-hmm. And, I'm now 58, but for those first 35 years, looking back, I see, oh my God, I was so disconnected from my truth that that's the only reason I needed the validation. But once I shifted everything and started the inward journey, going inward, it changed everything. And then you learn the tools and all of that to help you, as you said, connect with. But I want to start this conversation because I love the title of your book. So what is radical intuition? What does that term mean to you?
Yeah, so this is an intuition book that's so different from all of the other intuition books that readers might have come in contact over the years. And really, the reason for that is, I wanted to reimagine intuition in a more modern, contemporary context. For so long and for so many decades and centuries, intuition has had so many misconceptions about it, either that it doesn't exist, or that it's just something for women, or that it's something scary and occult, and we really lack this common normalized understanding of intuition and what it really was and how it was an everyday part of our life and just part of our normal cognitive function. So, I've worked for 20 years in technology. So my background has really been sort of this merging, my spirituality side. I wrote my first book on intuition almost 20 years ago, and, connecting that with this sort of everyday life and practical application in business and innovation and creativity and growing our lives and having great relationships and all of these different ways that intuition applies to our life. So my mission with this was really to, in terms of reimagining this idea of intuition, was to give a comprehensive understanding of all the many ways that intuition adds up to our truth in our life. And I love that you said that, because knowing your truth, right? That's the core, that's the end game of intuition, because it connects us with all truth. That's its job. And as it does that, it helps us discover who we really are and what we're meant to do in this world.
And isn't that what we're all here? Like, I believe, it's, as I shared in the intro about you, it's so we can experience the extraordinary life we are born to live. That's what we are here to do. Mm-hmm. And absolutely. This journey and connecting with our intuition and really committing to going inward, it can change everything.
It does change everything. And I talk about this idea of this intuition revolution that is so poignant, I think, at this moment in time. And it really does mirror what you said earlier about that inward shift. I mean, the revolution that we all need right now is the revolution to start to honor ourselves and our own truth over the conditioning and the illusions and the lies and the confusion and chaos of the outside world. And that's what, over time, we discover that, as life moves on and we get into our older years, we start to realize that, man, we should have been doing this all along. If I would have been connected my truth when I was in my 20s the way I am now, like, oh my gosh, how would life have been different? And what could I have done? So really allowing people, giving people the opportunity to know that truth and know that there's a real power there that the world can't ever take away from you once you tap into it. So there's so much there to discover, and I'm really happy to be sharing this message right now, because I think it's very timely with what's happening in society.
Oh, it so is. So I know something, from people writing articles for Aspire and listening to my audience over the last 14 years. I've heard what you said a moment ago about some people like, well, I'm not intuitive. Mm-hmm. So do you believe everyone has access to their intuition?
Absolutely. Everyone who's ever walked the face of the earth has had access to intuition. We've just been taught that we don't. And that's been one of the, sort of greatest crimes against humanity, is somewhere out there, the powers that be have convinced us that we don't have this power, that it doesn't exist, or that it's something to be afraid of. And for whatever reason, that has disempowered us, because we have this whole other side of our brain, this other side of our mind, this intuitive, rich, sort of magical side of our thinking that allows us to live extraordinarily and tap into genius and insight that is beyond the traditional cause and effect thinking linear mind. So yes, everyone has it. And ironically, people think just women have it, but women can be more open to it. But some of the hugest advocates, like in those people that you listed at the beginning of the show, have been men. So everybody has it. It's just a matter of tuning in and learning how to listen to it.
Well, I can't wait to dive into the next part of this conversation when we come back from our first break. And I am with Kim Chestney, author of Radical Intuition. I invite you to swing by kimchestney.com, and we'll be right back in a moment.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Hey America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Today we're talking about radical intuition with Kim Chestney. So Kim, everyone has it. Mm-hmm. And for those who feel like, I don't get it, I don't know how to connect, what's the first step in developing it?
Yeah, so one of the things I talk about in the book is this idea of mindfulness and how mindfulness has really set the stage and the foundation for this sort of new practice of insightfulness that's founded and grounded in intuition. So the first step ever to hear your intuition is, whether it comes to you naturally or whether you're trying to develop it and hone it and amplify it, either way, the first step is to make space for it. Because your intuition doesn't come to you unless you quiet your mind. So if you think about those times in the past where you might have had those little intuitive moments or those intuitive inklings, they usually come in times when you're like in the shower or going for a walk, or maybe when you first wake up in the morning. Those little moments when your mind is quiet, that's when your intuition sneaks in, because your mind's like not into intuition. It's kind of like, I want to control everything. And so as soon as an intuition comes, your mind's going to hop right in and probably try to make sense of it. Or if it's something that's scary, it might try to talk you out of it or tell you it's nothing. Or if it's something that challenges you in a new way. So you really have, we talk about our inner voice, but there's really more than one inner voice. Your intuition is your true inner voice, your highest inner voice. So we want to connect and differentiate that from like our inner critic and our fears and our emotions and all those other different voices that might not have our best interest in mind.
And what I love is that, just using that phrase, develop it, it means it puts the power in our hands, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we have the power to connect with it. But one of the things when you said about creating space, I have to say that was my hardest part many years ago, because I was programmed do. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to be. Yep. And now I tell my clients, I said, if you don't have a to-be list next to your to-do list, you need to start there, because it changes everything. So that really resonated with my truth and story about making space for it and quieting the mind. Do you find that, especially with technology and the way the world is, that technology is a reason for the disconnect? Because people are never disconnected from out there.
Yeah, I think life is really sped up. I think this whole idea that we're so much busier. Think about even, and we look back on in our lifetime, how much slower life was when we were younger. There was so much more space and so much more time. And part of it now is technology has made everything accessible. So you can always be doing something at all times. Back in the old days, there was nothing to do, so it's kind of like, okay, so I have this natural space built into my life. But now, we can go 24/7. There's always information in our fingertips. There's always something to read or do or explore, or something to distract us or to keep our minds busy. And that's why mindfulness is so important. And I loved what you said about the to-be list. And I think that is great because mindfulness is really the counterpoint to all that, right? It tells us slow down, be present, be in the moment, open up space for yourself and to connect with life. And when we do that, it's in that silence that the stillness speaks. That's where our intuition speaks to us, in that silence. So to really start to open up to our intuition and develop a relationship with it, which is ultimately what we want to do. It's almost like, our higher self, we're just getting to know our higher self in the language that it speaks to us. And we have to create time and space with ourselves in that quiet.
It's made such a difference in my life. I just feel more centered and grounded in my life. Now, a moment ago, you mentioned that there's different types of intuition. Let's talk about the 4 types of intuition.
Yeah. So, there's one sort of, there's just one big intuition, it's just intuition is truth. It is our connection to truth. Yogananda said that, intuition is the soul's power of knowing God. So whatever word you use to describe the source, the supreme, the connection to the universe and life, intuition is what unites us with that. So from that overarching universal source, our intuition comes and speaks to us through our individual beings. And through that process, there's 4 basic pathways that our intuition can use. And, when I came up with this model, I sort of modeled it after Carl Jung's 4 cognitive functions. The way we experience and process information in the world around us is very much the same as the way we experience and process information from the inside through our intuition, through our bodies, our minds, our hearts, and our spirits. So when we think about those 4 elements of being and how our intuition uses them to share intuitive information with us, we can look back on our lives and say, oh, wow, my intuition's been telling me things all along and I just didn't realize it. I didn't realize it was my intuition, So for example, with your bodies, I mean, every day our bodies are speaking to us, whether we have little aches and pains or, even chronic issues, or when we eat. Intuitive eating is so important. Our body knows what it needs. The body knows different foods that are good for us at different times. And it can intuitively draw us to different things or make us want different things. And so learning to differentiate those voices between like your intuition and like your cravings or what you think you should be eating or your diets and all that stuff can really be beneficial to your health. And then, with the mind, really when you're making decisions every day, when you're, trying to decide which way to go to work, or if you're going to take a new job, or if you're going to go out with this new partner, all these decisions that you're making and discerning throughout the day is very much tied into mindful intuition. So we can really use our inner guidance system. And then the 3rd type of intuition is what I call creative intuition, because this is the intuition that moves us to transform and evolve and become better. We've heard of having a calling. We've all had that feeling of having a calling to do something with our life, or just felt called to serve or help in some sort of way. And that's how our intuition moves us to impact the world and really to create the change that we were meant to bring each and every one of us individually into this world. So that's a really powerful part of intuition for artists and leaders and people who are really out there making change and innovating in the world. And then finally, the 4th type of intuition is that part of us that's connected to that sublime, supreme part of life, our higher consciousness, our metaphysical realities and mystical experiences, and the connection and oneness with God or life itself. So those real spiritual awakening moments and the moments that we feel that bliss and connectivity with the life is really tied into that type of intuition.
Oh, I love your descriptions. And immediately I knew how I process. I'm the creative.
Mm-hmm.
Have been. I process that way. I've created 5 multimedia inspirational brands. And I'm always in that listen, comes through me, birth it. It doesn't, I feel like that's my processing center.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was a child, that's how I process. So is it possible that you can receive or develop all 4, but do some people have a stronger one over the other 3? How does it usually work?
Great question. So, I've been giving this sort of, in the book, we have an affinity assessment that you take, and it's pretty in depth, and you can kind of figure out like where your natural sensibilities are with these 4 types of intuition. And over the years, what I've found is that most people generally have 1 or 2 that they're stronger at, and then 1 or 2 that they're maybe just mediocre at or not so great at even sometimes. So we're all a kind of our own unique blend of all 4. So they're all your intuition can always use all 4 of these pathways. It's just that some pathways are more open than others. And if you're a creative person, or if you're, ever since you were young, you were good at art or music or stuff like that, or writing, then you probably have a really natural, open, creative intuition. And that's going to be really easy for you to follow that inspiration and that inner muse to create new things and build new projects and all that kind of fun stuff. So ultimately, the end goal is for us to get all of these types of intuition working and all of these pathways open so that we can receive information and guidance from our intuition from every possible avenue.
I love it because I think the two I'm strongest, creative, and my notes say higher consciousness. The other one, the body and listening, I've been working on that for the last couple of years. So, this is so. Now I'm like, ooh, I got to take that assessment.
Yeah, it's fun. It changes over time. I just keep taking it for fun sometimes to see how a different phase of my life it's different. But it's interesting how some points in your life you're using different types of intuition more than others.
Yeah, I think before, when I think back to when I was younger, I took private art lessons for God from 9 till I was 30. And I became an entrepreneur in 92. Before, when I was young, I see that the creative was my outlet for expression, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when I got on the spiritual journey, it became my almost like a, what do you call that? The little jack you put in the back of a TV to receive, right?
Yeah, right.
How I receive information.
Mm-hmm.
So I receive downloads, insights, visuals, and it's because I've trusted it so long, I don't second guess when I receive something. And I have other friends that are entrepreneurs, and they're like, you make the quickest decisions. I said, because I've learned to trust my intuition.
Awesome.
So is that one of the biggest benefits? I don't even know if that's the word I want, but the biggest benefit of learning to trust your intuition.
Yeah, and that's such a great example. I'm glad that you shared that because, once you start to just realize that you can actually rely on this, and, it takes time to build trust in it. You have to get those validations. And, as you realize, okay, so this actually works. This is real. This isn't just my imagination. And it's really helping my life. Then you start to naturally rely on it. And it just kind of creates this, I call it a culture of insightfulness. You just immediately rely on that insight that comes and you can trust it. And like you said, it comes fast and quick. That's the thing that's great about intuition. You don't have to go get a PhD to figure out how to use it. Once you're aware of it, and once it's flowing, it comes quickly and easy. It's so much easier than, working out a formula and solving problems the old-fashioned way with our linear thinking mind. Intuition is instantaneous. It's an epiphany and we just receive it. And it's wonderful that way. So if we really, kind of tune our minds to that frequency where we can get those little blips and those insights and those drop-ins and then act on them and honor them, then life is so much easier. You are so much aligned. You can just make better choices and things sort of open up because you're connected with your truth and your genuine path instead of trying to go off in all these directions and trying to follow other people's paths or all that confusion is really eliminated when you start to follow your intuition.
Well, it's so true. And for me, many years ago, I remember as I was developing it, that I would get the insight. And then, of course, because I had spent most of my life in the head and ego, it would be like, what are you even thinking about doing that? That is not logical. And you know how it is, like, no. Is that normal for those just developing? The ego and the mind jumps in to tell the intuition and the soul everything of why it's not the right reason. And now, of course, I don't listen to that.
Right.
But do you have a lot of people giving you that feedback? How do I decipher?
It absolutely 100%. That's what will happen. I guarantee it. So unless you have some sort of like spiritual awakening that immediately shifts everything, that's what happens. So we start to listen to our intuition. We start to follow, and your mind's going to be like, it's not going to want to give up control. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about that in The Power of Now, and I love the work that he does with consciousness and awakening, because I feel like it really directly ties into this relationship with intuition. So the mind doesn't want to give up. It wants to be like, okay, this is my dominion. What is this intuition thing here? So the mind's going to jump in. It's going to try and talk you out of it. It's going to be trying to tell you that doesn't make any sense. You need to stay in this sort of rational thinking place, which in another way is really limiting. It seems like it's sort of counterintuitive, because it seems like, by being rational and being really smart and thinking this through, I'm maintaining control over my life and I'm doing what's best for myself. But really what you don't realize you're doing is you're also creating boundaries and limitations for your thinking. And it's not allowing you to see beyond this moment in time and where you're at. So that's the thing about intuition. Your intuition knows everything. It is connected to everything in the world that's ever been or has been or will be. It's happening right now. Your intuition knows it all. So when you can connect to pieces of that, when you can bring that down into your consciousness and follow it, then you're able to see the big picture. Intuition can see the big picture, but the mind can only see what's right around us right now. So it's so limiting to shut off that capacity within us.
I'll tell you, it's been liberating for me. So I am just loving this conversation. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, Kim, I want to talk more about what you touched on earlier, which is mindfulness and insightfulness. Mm-hmm. So my friends, we'll be back in a moment. I'm with Kim Chestney, author of Radical Intuition. You can learn more at kimchestney.com. We'll be right back.
This is OTRFM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Experience a homecoming to your heart. In the foreword of Dr. Deborah Riebel's new book, Being Love, How Loving Yourself Creates Ripples of Transformation in Your Relationships and the World, Marcy Shimoff shares, the answer to our inner longing isn't finding love, it's being love. The practices that Dr. Deborah presents in Being Love are keys to opening your heart and receiving your divine birthright as a physical manifestation of love. Her techniques, developed over years of successful private practice with her clients and from her extensive training in multiple disciplines, are accessible, compassionate, and effective. Her message is powerful, and if you allow it, will change your whole life. Order your copy of Being Love today at beinglovebook.com. and receive over 45 transformational gifts. Being Love is brought to you by Inspired Living Publishing.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Hi, you're listening to Inspired Conversations. With me today is Kim Chestney, author of Radical Intuition, and we have been talking about the 4 types of intuition, how everyone has intuition, and it is possible to develop it. So, Kim, right before the break, you had touched on mindfulness and insightfulness and, the importance of them. So let's talk about that. Fill us in a little more on that topic.
Yeah. So really, as a counterpoint to this crazy world we're living in right now, and all of this bustle of life, making this shift, going within, becoming more mindful, it allows us to just ignite this process of awakening. And, we talk about mindfulness, we talk about becoming conscious, right? So often in life, we walk around in a sort of state of unconsciousness. And I talk about this in the book as really there's sort of 3 levels of intuitive consciousness. There's unconsciousness, consciousness, and then super consciousness. So most of us, regular old people walking around, we spend a lot of time in unconsciousness. Our minds are thinking about a million things. We're not conscious of what we're doing. We're not present. We don't even really have empathy for, the way that we affect the world in a lot of ways, whether it's even like the environment or the people around us. So we act so unconsciously, not in a bad way, not like in a evil, quote unquote way, but just in an unconscious way. And, this kind of unconsciousness is really a source of pain and suffering for people. But a lot of it isn't intentional. We're just not awake. So moving into the state of consciousness through presence and mindfulness wakes us up. It allows us to kind of step back and say, oh, wow, like, okay, so I see what's happening here. I'm present in this moment, and I'm aware of what's actually happening, and I'm starting to see the world in a new way. And I'm starting to feel that reconnection with life that I lost when I was asleep. And the more that we wake up and the more that we move into our intuition in this space, because that's where our intuition starts to talk to us in this mindful present space, the more we start to raise our vibration, the more we start to raise our awareness and become participants in this expansion of consciousness that's really part of the universe itself. So this sort of process of moving from mindfulness into insightfulness and then staying there and being in that frame of mind really allows us to evolve our thinking into really to push the boundaries of what it's possible to know and understand and experience in this three-dimensional world that we live in.
Oh my, oh my. I was thinking of something when you were speaking about mindfulness. When you first hear the word meditation, I automatically would go to, I can't meditate. I have one of those busy minds.
Yep.
And that's the story I believed for 3 or 4 decades. Mm-hmm. And then one day, and this goes back to your mindfulness, what you just shared, one day, maybe a decade ago, I was washing dishes, and as I shared when we were offline, I live in the middle of the woods on a gorgeous spring-fed pond in the middle of nowhere. And I was washing the dishes, and I had had a busy day, and I was just washing this cup, and probably for, I'd say, 30 to 45 seconds, I was in the woods. I was in that moment. Mm-hmm. And I had this real quick, sudden insight and said, who said you couldn't meditate, Lynn? That's mindfulness, right? Mm-hmm. Being so fully present in the moment and not in your head. That's my description. Is that what you were just describing?
Yeah, yes. And that's a great example, because I think people make this misconception that to meditate, we just kind of have to sit in a room and like stare at a wall and empty our minds. But no, meditation is an experience. It is uplifting. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel present, because when you get into this state, I mean, there is Zen meditation that does stuff like that, and that's wonderful. But I'm mostly talking about like insight meditation and ways that we can connect to our intuition through meditation. So there's a lot of different ways you can meditate, but I think letting people know that meditation can be this really rich experience. And I love what you said about being in the woods and having this moment, because when you start to be present, and, whether it's in meditation or whether it's simply standing, looking out your window, or going for a walk in the woods, walking meditations are wonderful. It's that experience of being part of life in that moment. You can feel it inside you. You can feel it lift you up. You can feel it like come alive inside you, because you're in this wonderful moment of life on this planet, participating in it consciously and awake, instead of distracted by your mind or unconscious. So that feeling can really, really ignite something within you. And especially this whole awakening process that helps us and drives us to get back to that feeling every minute of our life.
Well, that's exactly what happened. That moment of awareness, I realized exactly what you said. Who said I have to sit to experience this? Who said I have to, Indian style?
Yeah.
I take moments for the last decade. It's moments throughout the day where I just drop in and I'm fully present with myself, my breath, the moment, the wind on my face.
Yep.
That for me, in my own journey, is mindfulness. It's when I receive the insights, when I feel one with my divine source and all that is and nature. It shifted everything for me, because I had the story of, I'm not one that can meditate, thinking that meditation in that form that I had created the story about was the only way to connect. And it's not for me, right? So everything you just shared really spoke to me, and I know it's speaking to the listeners who may struggle with what I used to struggle with.
Yeah, I think that's really making that shift. And I love that you said that shift, because when I talk about that intuition revolution, that's what it is. It's that change, that shift to that inner moment of presence, and realizing that that presence, that moment that you experience right there, whether it's in meditation or whether you're looking out your window or whether you're, even in the shower, in a bath, that moment of presence is a portal. It's a portal to higher awareness and wisdom and creativity and insight and union with life itself. So it's a really magical place. And if you can be there for 3 seconds, you can be there for 5 minutes, whatever time you can build into your day to just create those moments of reconnection can be really powerful.
It has been for me. It's, life throws us curveballs.
Mm-hmm.
None of us are immune to receiving them, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And all of these skills, or innate skills, I guess you can say, are what allow me to stay grounded in my truth, even when chaos is blowing all around me.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel more like an oak tree now. When things are going around, like I'm grounded in my truth, instead of the weeping willow that's always going around in every storm.
Mm-hmm.
And mindfulness and listening and tapping in, I believe it's the key. It has been the key in my own journey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a great analogy.
And we're going to take our last break. And when we do, I want to come back and I want to talk about this intuition revolution, my friend. I want to hear your thoughts about and your beliefs about, the ways our society is actually going through one right now. So I can't wait to dive into this. And we'll be back in a moment with Kim Chestney of KimChestney.com. Be sure to check out her new book, Radical Intuition. We'll be right back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
It's time to amplify your intuitive superpowers and allow your soul to lead the way. When you hear, trust, and follow your inner wisdom, you'll discover your soul's path. A path that leads to the joyful, authentic, and abundant life you desire and deserve. Master intuitive teacher, coach, and healer, Carolyn McGee is known as the Angel, Animal, and Intuition Oracle. She has taught thousands of professional, corporate, and entrepreneurial women to trust themselves and their divine intuition so they can show up in their full power in business and in life. With a background of over 20 years in high tech, Carolyn knows firsthand the importance of living from a blend of her masculine and feminine energies. If you're ready to embrace your intuitive superpowers, visit CarolynMcGee.com to learn about Carolyn's supportive programs and offerings.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back, my friends. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I am so grateful that you are here with me today and my special guest, Kim Chestney. So I love the phrase intuition revolution because I believe this is what the world needs. It's like inward, my friends. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the ways you're noticing our society is going through an intuition revolution?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot going on right now. And well, for me, I first noticed it almost about 10 years ago when, working in tech and working in innovation, I was working with a lot of some of the biggest tech companies in the world. I really worked with creative technologies and innovation and, business entrepreneurship and all of this cool stuff. So I'm here meeting with all these super smart genius people from, some of the best universities in this country. And all of a sudden I start hearing people talking about intuition. And I was like, my ears are perking up. I'm like, okay, now you're speaking my language. Like I'm all about this. So as I, got to know what was going on with this, I started to realize how important intuition really is with this process of change and transformation and innovation that's happening in our society today. So whether you're Steve Jobs, who's one of the hugest advocates of intuition, using technology to build and create like amazing things that change the world, or whether we're using our intuition to tap into our inner truth to find the unity that connects all of us and the truth behind all of the social issues that we're dealing with today. However you're looking at this process of human growth and transformation that we're going through in this era, intuition is at the core of it. I say we were living at the dawn of a post-information age. We're getting to the place where, the singularity is near. Machines are going to officially be smarter than us, and human beings are going to have to really, lay their claim on something else that differentiates us and that drives us to the next level of our consciousness and really understanding the world. So intuition, and we have a Intuition Revolution Summit going on over the next month. It's free that anyone can sign up for on my website. And we talk with global leaders from all around the world, 20 of them, talking about this process that's happening. We have Hollywood producers, we have game designers, we have people talking about artificial intelligence, artists, rock stars, psychologists, not your usual suspects talking about intuition, but all of them recognizing that intuition is this force that's really going to be foundational in the future. So that's why it's so important for us to start developing it and having young people develop it, because it's going to be crucial whether you're innovating, creating new products or projects, or designing. Creativity jobs are going to be the biggest jobs, or projected to be the biggest job market of the future. So that's a shift. That's not something that was, we could say, 20 years ago. So seeing that come into play and tying it all into like what's actually happening now when you're thinking of politics and the change this country's going through. We're going through these growing pains now that are monumental. But I truly believe that, they're there for a reason. The pain is here to wake us up and show us that there is a unity underneath it all, and that we're going to get through this and be stronger and better and more united.
I believe that too. I really do. I've been in peace because I know that this is the awakening and the shift that we need.
Yep.
As uncomfortable as it may be, I just believe it's the next phase of evolution of what we need to awaken to. So what can some people our listeners start doing right now if they want to jumpstart their intuition, Kim?
So apart from, making more space in your life, the first thing I always say is just carve out some white space on your calendar. Time to be alone. Go for a walk every day. Treat yourself to a nice bath or a little spa experience at home. Even if you have kids, just finding a way to have a little time to yourself is so important. And then, once you get into that space, set that intention to open up and honor those first impressions that come to you. Because remember, intuition's about first impressions. It's those first epiphanies, insights that simply come to you. So that's one of the defining traits of intuition. In the book, I talk about a whole list of them. There's ways to differentiate those voices in your head. But one of the ways to know that it's your intuition, it's a thought that just comes to you. You just simply have it. You simply receive it. You don't deduce it, right? So if something just pops into your head, step back and really honor that for a second, because there's a good chance that it's your intuition, because it had to come from somewhere. And if it didn't come from your linear thinking, from your reason, then it probably came from your intuition. So getting into that space, opening that space, and listening to the things that come to you or simply arrive are the great first steps to take. And beyond that, on my website, I have a 12-page free intuition awakening guide that'll go a little deeper into like next steps you can start taking right now to start doing all that stuff.
And I want to say your website again, that's kimchestney.com. Be sure you grab that guide. One of the things when you said about first impressions, I always say, it just dropped in. Like that's the feeling.
Yep.
Drop. And I always look up and go, thank you. You know? It's just a conversation I have. Thank you.
Yep, that's good. That's great. It's great to appreciate it and give gratitude, right? Because that sets the space for more to come.
Oh, exactly. And I can remember going back to one of our earlier segments of trying to learn to decipher, well, is this just some kind of fantasy drop in? Or because I had the ego going, well, that's stupid. You know, the conversation we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
And so one of my ways that I had to come up with to decipher my truth was to decide what I felt like about what I was receiving. So I learned to decipher that if it was ego or fear, I would always feel constricted, less than, pulled my dreams away. But I noticed that when I had those things we now know are intuitive insights, it always left me feeling expansive, filled with love, possibility, and etc. That's when I began to decipher the two voices, right? Intuition or ego and fear. And that changed everything for me. And so I noticed the more I identified with what divine downloads, intuition, whatever our listeners' words are, and knew the energy and feeling around it, I was able to feel safe to trust it. Has anyone else experienced it like in a similar way, like learning that balance?
Yeah, and that's really key. Is the ego and fear are like kryptonite to intuition. That's the thing. Like the intellect and intuition, the intellectual mind and the intuitive mind are really sort of two different facets of our consciousness. So those two things work together and are meant to complement each other. The problem happens is when ego and fear come in. And if our mind latches on to egoic thinking and fearful thinking, then that is what suppresses our intuition. Because our intuition is our connection to truth and our higher path and really the wisdom that unites all being. And ego really stands a lot for the opposite of that. It's about protecting myself and, taking care of myself and all of those things that we know about our egos. And so it becomes a kind of process of differentiating those egoic feelings and thoughts from the intuitive ones and making the choice to honor those intuitive thoughts over those egoic thoughts. And so much of egoic thoughts are rooted in fear. And that's the problem is, fear is really the antithesis of intuition, because when you're actually following your intuition, and I'm sure you know this, you realize there's nothing to be afraid of, because your intuition, it has your back. It's with you every step of the way. And if you're following it, it's always going to lead you to your growth and your best ultimate path. Even if sometimes there are some growing pains, even, like you said, this life's curveballs. It doesn't mean that it's all going to be rainbows and unicorns, but you're going to trust that whatever you're going through is for your own good. And you're going to be able to rise above that crippling fear that holds us back from so much experience of life.
Oh, so true, so true. And one of the things is that you mentioned earlier was that in the work that you've been doing, because you said you've been doing this for decades, like following this path. What led you? Are you still in the tech? And how do you bring in, for those that are working with that mind, that more the corporate mind, the critical thinking mind, who wants to bring intuition into that world, into their corporation, their job, their position? Do you have any tips for them?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's there is still a lot of resistance. I would like to say that we live in a world where it's completely tolerant to intuition, but there's still some resistance. There are still, we haven't fully stepped into that shift. We're really in the middle of it right now. I think the people who get intuition are the best leaders, are the most thriving companies, the people that are actually really succeeding. If you talk to any of the people that are out there really crushing it, they're going to tell you that, man, their intuition has been there and helped them, right? So intuition is right now, I mean, the climate that we're in right now with all this, intuition is sort of a signifier of greatness and extraordinary success. People who've had it, intuition, that goes hand in hand with intuition. So, the rest of everyday business, especially in the business world, there's still people who really are adopting that model that, we really have to just kind of do our strategic planning and go. I mean, not that any of that's bad, but we really want to tie our intuition in. We just want intuition to have a voice. And I think it's not that we're ever choosing one path over the other. We're just giving intuition a voice. And the companies and the leaders that give intuition a voice and give empathy a voice are going to be the successful companies of the future.
Oh, I believe that. I noticed the difference in my own businesses as I, stepped into the spiritual journey from where I was in 92 at the beginning of the journey to where I am now as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Night and day, all my decisions come through my intuition, not anywhere else. If it doesn't bring me joy, if it isn't ease, grace, and flow, mm-hmm. I'm in that stream.
Yep.
And I hear from my clients all the time, like, "Oh my God, how do you do what you do?" And I'm like, "Ease, grace, and flow, baby."
Yeah,
that's my mantra.
I love it.
Comes from I listen. I no longer have that internal struggle, right? Mm-hmm. Because I've learned to honor my intuition. So I have to say, it has been such a joy having you here today.
Oh, thank you.
Keep going because it's one of my favorite topics. And I want to take a moment to invite everyone to visit KimChestney.com to learn more about everything that Kim is doing in the world and to take advantage of that free gift. Now, Kim, I'm not sure when your Intuition Revolution Summit is going on. I'm not sure if when this airs, it will be live, but just in case, let everyone know that URL.
Yeah, so it's going to be an evergreen event. We're starting it on November 16th, and it will be available forever after November 16th. And it's a 10-day journey. You can opt in. It's an inner retreat that you do at your own pace, and it really allows you to really open your mind. And we have a lot of exercises and intuition awakening activities that are wrapped into these great conversations. So it's really a nice experience. And you can sign up for that for free at intuition-revolution.com.
Well, I will be right over there. I am so excited. I'm so glad that you brought this up. So again, my friends, that's intuition-revolution.com. Kim, thank you for joining me today, for being the light that you are in the world, for bringing for leading the intuition revolution.
Thank you, Linda, for having me. This has been a great conversation. So nice talking with you.
You too. And until next time, everyone, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness, my friends. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.